Hey everybody. Today I'm going to cover political parties and political ideology. This is the second PowerPoint for Unit 3. All right. So generally when we think about ideology, we think about left versus right or liberal versus conservative. All right. It's important to distinguish that these are not political parties. These are simply ideologies. This is what people believe on both sides. All right. Um, so those on the left are considered liberal. All right. Liberals feel that the government should be used to help people. All right. So government should be used for good. All right. Liberals think that the government should play an active role in regulating certain things, such as businesses that may be predatory, businesses that may be, maybe doing things that might hurt the environment, basically just harmful business practices. All right. And I'm giving you a very basic entry level explanation of these. They're both more complex than this, but it's the best I can do given the circumstances here. On the right, conservatives, they are much more distrusting of government. All right. So anytime you see like a TV ad for someone who talks about the term big government, or is talking about wanting to lower taxes, that's probably a conservative. All right. Conservatives feel that the government should not be involved basically in any way in the economy or any way of regulation whatsoever. They think that it will hurt businesses in the long run. There are various degrees of being both liberal and conservative. As much as conservatives want to tell you that everyone on the left are far left, almost virtually socialist, the fact of the matter is that most Democrats tend to be mildly liberal and most Republicans tend to be mostly conservative. But there are probably certain things on both sides that that people may feel differently about. Not all Democrats are for big government regulation, right? Just like not all conservatives are for deregulation. All right. And then lastly, you've got third parties that can offer a more radical move to the left or the right. But in America, we tend to only focus on the two big political parties, which we'll get to. So this is a good video by Khan Academy that also breaks down liberal versus conservative in America. Please watch this. And then now we're going to jump into party systems. All right, you've got three different kind of party systems throughout the world. You've got a one-party system. That's exactly what it sounds like. It's a country that only has one major political party. I give you some examples there. You've got a two-party system. This is what we have in America. This is a system in which two major political parties are present. And then you've got a multi-party system, systems in which there are more than three political parties that fight for control of the government. So I'm going to give you a quick, brief history of political parties in the United States. The first two political parties were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. Back then, they would have referred to themselves as National Republicans or simply Republicans, but for the sake of not getting confused, we're going to call them the Democratic Republicans, because this is not going to be the Republican Party of today. All right. So you had your two party leaders for the Democratic Republicans. Thomas Jefferson was generally seen as the party leader. For the Federalists, it was Hamilton. All right, so you can see here that Democratic Republicans wanted a limited federal government, whereas the Federalists wanted a strong federal government with a more active role for the government to play. All right, eventually these parties die out, they evolve, and the long story short is eventually the Democratic Republican Party will turn into the Democratic Party, which is, the same Democratic Party as today in name, but over the years, party platforms shift drastically. So in the 1820s, that's when the Democratic Party is born. The Republican Party of today is founded in the mid 1850s. So it's just kind of good to know the basics there. So here are the two political parties of today. You've got your Democrats, you've got your Republicans. All right, like we said earlier, Democrats tend to be mostly liberal, so you can have a conservative Democrat and you can technically have a liberal Republican. All right, but for the most part, liberal tends to sync up with Democrats, conservative tends to sync up with Republicans. All right, in the U.S., we have two major third parties, the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, but, the odds of either of them ever, say winning the presidency, slim to none. If you're interested in them, by all means, please dig further if you want to, but I'm just going to kind of move on ahead here. So here's how political parties in the United States are founded or are broken down. They're organized. You've got your political party organization. So you've got the Democratic National Committee. You've got the Republican National Committee. You've got chair people on these committees, and their job is to basically organize the committee at three levels. You've got your federal level, so people who run for federal office, whether they be, people who run for president, people who run for the Senate, people who run for the House, what have you. And then you've got, you've got your state level organizations within the DNC and the RNC, and then you got your local people. All right, these next two slides, this is where you can find the platform for the Democratic Party and where you can find the platform for the Republican Party. So if you want to, click on those and just kind of get more of a feel for what both parties believe in. All right, just some other organization of political parties. Obviously both parties are going to try to appeal to as many voters as possible so that they can win elections. In the past, parties have tended to try to avoid extreme positions on issues, but I think, some people would argue today that that's not necessarily the case anymore. People would try to, appeal more to moderate voters as opposed to, the far left or the far right. I mentioned the term platform earlier. This is a series of stances and beliefs that the party has on certain issues. And then a plank is each individual part of a platform. So, there would be a plank on healthcare in the Democratic and in the Republican Party platforms. All right, you don't necessarily have to write this down or memorize this or anything, but this is a bit more detailed of what each party believes about most of the major issues. So if you want to, get in here and look at some of this, you can, but you don't necessarily have to. And then I want you to get this, the 5 functions of political parties. You've got campaigning for candidates, right? So each party organization is going to try their best to get their party nominees elected. Informing the citizens. So this, you could definitely include the parties as forms or agents of mass media, like we talked about, like we talked about earlier. Help manage the government, so appoint members to certain jobs, linking the different levels. We talked about federal, state, local, and then acting as a watchdog. So, if one party is doing something that the other party finds sketchy or whatever, they're going to, maybe release a statement or something along those lines to, let the people know about it and try to sway public opinion. All right, but make sure you take the quiz on the next slide. And that's all I got for you today. So thanks, folks. Have a good day.